Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Music. And on today, 5 and 5, we have Charles Root, a good friend of mine from a couple of communities I'm involved with. Um, One is Produce Like a Pro, the other one is MIxdown OnLine. And we become, actually, we got to meet each other this year at NAMM, which was a fantastic experience. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was fun. It was a good time to be able to actually, you know, we see each other on video all the time, but to actually meet someone and shake their hands and actually talk to them face to face is so much better, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to be able to grab a coffee, a beer, or a taco and actually hang out. So,
That's right, right. And you got to fly all the way out here to California and
yep.
enjoy some. It was actually nice weather for the
Yeah,
NAM show
not
this
bad.
year. So.
Yeah, Nam was a good week.
Please give out your information, your name of your studio,
Oh, yeah.
where
Yep.
people
Yep.
can find you, please.
Well, it's not Blackbird Studio,
Right.
but yeah, our studio is called Electric Owl Works. So you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I mean, pretty much all the social media. We're EOW Audio for Electric Owl Works Audio. Um, our website, electricowlworks.com. You can find me on social media too as Chaz Root, CHAZROOT, on Facebook also. So if someone, yeah, just look for Charles Root the third, Chaz Root, Electric Owl Works. You'll probably see my face pop up and be like, so not that guy again. So yeah,
No, okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I'll have links in the bio down in the description below too, as well, so
yep.
everyone can find
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Andy.
absolutely, no problem. You are in Buffalo, is
Yeah,
that
we're about
correct?
half hour south out in the country.
And I
So
understand you're having some good weather right now, not mild weather for your this time of year. Isn't that correct?
yeah, well, it's almost 50 degrees out, so it's like, 8 Celsius or something like that, 8, 10 Celsius. But yeah, we had like 3 inches of snow yesterday, and today it's going to be in the 50s. So, and then last week it was in the 70s. So this winter has been
Ups and
absolutely,
downs.
yeah, it's been weird. It's been like hardly any snow. Like we had that one snowstorm like 2 days before one of the Buffalo Bills playoff games,
Right.
and they were paying people like $20 an hour to come shovel out the football stadium
I
because
remember that.
we're in Buffalo and don't have a dome.
Right, right.
But
No.
yeah, so it's just one of those things. So
Speak
it's been a weird winter, but I still got my snow tires on because you never know.
exactly
So
right. And speaking of that football realm, it was either in Kansas City or Buffalo where I understand now these guys that were out there without shirts and stuff on, no gloves. I've heard now they might have to amputate some people's digits and stuff because they got frostbite. I don't remember if
I
that
did
was at
not hear
Kansas.
that.
Yeah.
I did not
So
hear that.
that saying, "Mom always tells you wear your jacket." Well, there you
Yep.
go.
Yeah, I mean, I have not been to a Buffalo Bills game since like the 90s, back like when the Bills went to 4 Super Bowls and lost, like
Right.
Jim Kelly and back in those days.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but there's always been, going back to, probably the 60s or 70s, there's always been a bunch of people who are just out there in the wintertime and they're guzzling beer and their
Hmm.
shirts are coming off and they're,
Yep.
and they're doing like the war paint and just, there's
Oh.
one guy shows up with an acoustic dressed like Elvis. He's like Elvis with the Buffalo Bills like logo on his jacket and stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, the Bills fans are notorious on social media. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm a Raider fan here. So
there
you
you
guys
go.
you guys kicked our ass literally back in the 90s. I think it was like 54-3 or something like that. It
Oh
was a
man.
ridiculous playoff game. It was the one that advanced you guys into the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was ridiculous. It was
Yeah.
Raiders don't travel well back east. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah, times, yeah, jet lag and stuff.
Yep, yep. So look at that football talk here on a music channel.
Hey.
Life is all about music encompasses many things, so that's
Hmm.
football's one of those things.
There you go.
Anyways, well, I have my list of questions that I made out.
which I have
for
not
you.
seen in advance, so I'm kind of a little worried here.
So yeah, this is what makes it fun because it's when I had Chris on a couple of weeks ago, it's fun to see how people process these questions to come up with the answers. And anyways, with that said, let's go on to question number one for you.
All right,
Okay.
so we're doing like there's like it's 5 and 5 is your
5 and 5,
format.
right? Yeah. So you're gonna get 5 questions where you can be as long-winded as you like, and then the next 5 I call rapid fire. You can either be short answers or you can expand on them however you want to do it.
Okay,
You know,
got
that's
it.
just the format I use.
No,
So,
it's a great idea.
well, thank you very much. So, question number one: what led you into the world of making music?
Oh man, you know, that's weird. I think it picked me. Have you seen those videos on social media where they have this people who are into cats? There's a thing called the cat distribution system, and like people just end up with a random like stray cat as a pet.
Yep.
It's like the like karma or the universe or some greater power like picked you to have this cat as a pet.
Hmm. Hmm.
For me, music is like that. It's like because I honestly, when I was little, like nursery school age, maybe even younger, like I used to hear sounds that weren't there, which sounds crazy, but like I would like wake up from dreams and still hear the sounds in my dream as I was awake, like walking around. And I wasn't sleepwalking or nothing, but I was always into music. And I think part of it may have to do with the fact. I mean, this is what I've talked to doctors about, but because like I was born with really bad eyes and I was blind for 2 years in high school, so I missed most of 10th and 11th grade for eye surgeries and stuff. And some of the medical folks I've spoke with said that like when you're vision impaired, your other senses are like more fine
Enhanced.
tuned.
Right.
So like I smell things other people don't smell and I hear things other people don't hear. And the other thing was that my parents had like an awesome just like shelves of really cool vinyl. So old jazz and Motown and R&B and some rock and stuff too, but they had a ton of vinyl and a really cool stereo system. It was like back in the day, I think a lot of folks it was like a badge of honor to have like a really like nice home hi-fi system or stereo system.
Hmm.
Like people now with the big screens and the sound bars. Back then it was like a big stereo system,
Yes.
and they would fill the house with music all the time. So plus I had a grandmother who played guitar. My Spanish grandma who she played like flamenco and stuff like that. So she played, and my one uncle played guitar. My cousins played like drums and guitar also. And so I just there was a family where like music was just like a big part of it. So I think it just kind of picked me, and I liked being able to like make sounds and play with tape recorders and all that. So um, it just it just kind of then I'd hear music that I really liked, and I was fascinated by how do they make that sound, and is that something I can learn how to do, and just like a great song is a great song. Because it doesn't matter like what genre it is. Because for me, there's like two genres of music, which is music I like and music I don't like, right? So, and it doesn't matter if it's Americana or rock or metal or urban,
Right.
hip hop, country, R&B. It doesn't matter, jazz, classical. There's stuff that I like and stuff that I don't like, and when something like you know speaks to you, a really cool piece of art in an art gallery or a song or whatever, you feel it inside. Like it just like makes you kind of self-aware. It almost like helps you like realize things about yourself, maybe that you feel an emotion or emotions that you weren't expecting. So that whole thing always just kind of fascinated me. So that's
Right.
what got me into it.
Right. I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking in the background
Oh,
there.
I'm blabbing.
Yeah, they got the mailman always shows up about this time, so it's but
Give him a
anyways,
treat. Give them a treat. They're doing their
Yeah,
job, man.
they'll be quiet here in about 2 minutes or
Yeah, no
seconds. So,
worries.
but anyways, back to your answers. It's the more I do this, the more I find how all of us mirror in the music. We mirror every each other. Your story is, has similarity stuff to mine. How
Sure.
I, got into music and the reason why. My grandmother, she sang. She was in bands and sang. And I
Cool.
have a cousin who was a studio musician for many years down in LA, and he actually played with Sister Sledge for a
Oh,
while
wow.
too. So I think that's who it was, Sister Sledge, and or Sister Sledge. I don't know, Sister
Yeah.
Sledge or Sister
Yeah.
Sledge.
Something
So
like that.
yeah, so um, yeah, it's just interesting to me how we all have similar stories, and
Yeah.
just like you were saying, you heard different, things in your head. Um, my earliest recollection of stuff for me was we had neighbors that were all girls in a family, and boy, I would flirt with them as a 5 and 6 year old, and I would the Osmonds was a big thing back then, and they were all huge
Oh, yeah.
Osmond fans, and so singing "Puppy Love" to them was funny, and you know,
Man, it all starts someplace, for all of us, you know,
right,
just
right,
and having those influences can be really helpful too, a relative or a friend or a neighbor, somebody
yeah,
in school who's like into it and already kind of
right,
taken like a step or two like prior to you doing it. They're already
hmm
taking lessons, they already got a piano or a guitar or a drum set or whatever.
right,
Like just it kind of like it's like okay, someone else that I know is doing it, so I can jump in and try this too. So it's all good, man.
yeah, yeah, and I understand you're a classically trained guitarist. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, I took classical lessons. This is after I got my eyesight back, like senior year of high school, because I was thinking about going to a music college, but back then it was like way tougher because you had to audition, which you still do, like for Berkeley and Juilliard, but it was tougher back then. So I took classical lessons from a teacher, from a pretty well-known classical player named Jeremy Sparks, and he was like this dude who he was transcribing and writing new arrangements from like Beethoven pieces and or whatever, Tchaikovsky or Brahms or Bach, and writing it for and like in transcribing like the orchestration from a full orchestra for like four guys on classical, you know, things. So
Hmm.
he was absolutely amazing, and that discipline was actually really really good because I had already taken lessons and I was in marching band in high school and stuff like that, and so I already knew how to read music and all that. But the discipline of when you're doing classical and trying to audition to get into a school, you just can't kind of play it like you're sitting around playing a Neil Young song. Like there's a specific posture. You have to sit a certain way and your hands have to be angled
Yeah,
a certain way and all that stuff. And that discipline, it actually, once you learn it, you realize that it's harder to learn, but once you learn it, it actually makes you a better player because
right,
like the physics of where you have your thumb on the instrument and how you have your right hand for the finger picking, it actually is more efficient once you learn it, but
right,
it's not comfortable to start with. So it was a really good thing to go through. And I mean, I still have a classical, six string that I pick up and play every now and again, and I should probably play it more. But I'm busy doing mixing and mastering and recording, so I don't play nearly as much as I should, and my chops aren't as good as they were back in the day. But it made me a better bass player. That was the other cool thing. So it made
yeah.
me a
That
really good bass player.
that right hand is so important when it comes to guitar. I didn't realize it. I was, little background on my guitar playing is took lessons. I just wanted to learn how to play music.
Hmm.
My teacher tried and tried and tried to get me to learn theory, and I just couldn't grasp it, and so I developed the ear. Um, Rather than the note reading. I can't do any of that. My kids can. My kids can
Mhm.
sight read. I can't do it. And it's a great thing to have because it's another language like anything
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
and they can keep that for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
that ability to read something like that.
Yeah.
But um, I didn't discover the right hand technique until maybe 3 years ago. I sat down one day, I came in my room and I'm like, what do I want to do this year to improve? And I said, you know what? I'm throwing the pick down. So I
There you go.
threw the pick down, and now I hardly even use the pick. And when I do go back to the pick, it's hard for me to actually even hold the pick. So it takes
Yeah.
me a while. It takes me a while to get that grip thing back on it. And man, I tell you, I really love it's much more freeing having that no pick in that hand. You can do so much more with the finger strummings and the whole thing. It's just opens up everything for your guitar playing.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I mean, Jeff Beck famously didn't use a pick, so
Right,
you
right.
you were in good company, sir.
Well, thanks. And
Yeah.
along with you too. So,
Oh,
well, maybe one day we get the honor to hear you play something, or
well,
if you
maybe at
drop
next
something on.
NAM we go take over a
Yeah, a booth.
the Gibson or Fender booth or somebody
Right,
and
right.
just
I
yeah.
know the guys at Loden. They're an
Oh,
Irish company done, so we can always go over there. Sean's a good friend of mine, so we can always go over
oh,
there.
cool. I
Yeah,
just
those
whacked
are
my camera. Sorry about that.
no worries. They're expensive guitars. I don't even touch them because I don't want to, hurt them. That's but we could definitely go over there, check those
Yeah.
out. So anyways, I love those that first the answer to that first question was great. So
Cool.
and let's move on to question number 2 here.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to get a
Okay.
sip of coffee.
No problem. All right. So, with all the advancements that plugins have achieved, do you still think it's necessary to have outboard gear to mix music?
Hold on.
Mhm.
I am. We are under like construction. We're redoing this room again.
Right.
However, I have what was hiding back there is a pair of vintage Yuri LA4s
Oh, wow.
and a Tegler Creme, which is as you as you probably know, it's
Yeah.
a passive EQ like a
Hmm.
Pultec
Hmm.
and the SSL style like VCA comp.
Hmm.
And do I think it's necessary? You know, I don't think anything's necessary. Like, I don't think fancy Neumanns are necessary. So, I've told people if you go to Home Depot and buy a bucket and fill it up with 57s and 58s, give me some mic cables and an old PV Live mixer from the 80s, I can make a record with that,
Right.
right? So, is it necessary? It's not necessary, but it gives you different colors and flavors, I think. I for recording, I love outboard gear because I like to get because I'm older and I used to work with 2-inch tape and all that stuff. So um, I'm used to going through consoles, and I have a Toft 32 channel console that I like to track with. So um, I have all my mic pre's are all in one console and do the Al Schmidt thing where I can ride faders in real time while the band's tracking, and that way the balance going into the DAW is like what we used to do on tape. You want
Hmm.
to try to get it as close to the record as you can.
Right.
So is outboard gear necessary for mixing and recording and stuff? It's not. Plugins are awesome. It's not. However, you know, I always just say work with what you got and make
Yeah.
the best of it.
Yeah.
And if you are fortunate enough to get your hands on some gear or you run across something at a yard sale or a pawn shop or something like that, just grab it. I mean,
Yeah. I have a saying that I got this from my old boss. He said it's always better to have a tool and not need it than to need the tool and not have it.
that is correct, man. That is
So
correct.
so I live on that theory. And um I've only, I haven't been doing this nowhere as long as you and other people in the industry, but um, I find it fascinating to use outboard gear, and I'm just now diving into the recording aspects of using recording wise. And man, it just opens your, like the right hand on the guitar. It just
Yeah.
opens up another avenue for you to mess with. And, and it's funny because a lot of times when I'm doing it, Sergio, my partner, he'll say, yeah, that's a little too heavy on the compression. You need to back that off. So I'll go back in, Linda, let's go. So,
Yeah. But
um,
the thing is, different people work different ways. So whatever helps you get like, get your goal, right?
right.
Whatever helps you get over that finish line. Because there's some people, and it's not just mixing, let's say, there's like the virtual amplifier plugins and stuff that have all the foot pedal chains you
Hmm.
can do with a VST like amplifier. And it's like, oh my God, I can pick a Fender Twin, I can pick a Marshall
Right,
Plexi
right.
or a Vox, and I got all these different foot pedals I can pick. And you can even play them like on iPads and stuff now for gigs. And can you make that work? Yeah, absolutely. But there's some people who just would
Right.
rather drag that pedal board around because they got a sound, and I don't think it's just like six-string gunslingers who care about their tone. It's mixers and recording engineers too,
Right,
because like you got a certain sound, right? You
right.
know, there's you know there's reasons why guys like Chris Lord LG I think are still doing a lot of their stuff with outboard because it's got his tone, his sound that he likes,
Right, right.
And then there's guys like, Michael Brower, who was, famously out of the box until a couple years ago with his huge racks of stuff. And it took him like, 2 or 3 years to transition into plugins because, he and his assistant were trying really, really hard to figure out how can we get the plugins to get the same sound that I want, that I'm
Right,
used to
right,
getting, right? So you can do it either way. You
right.
just,
That's experiment.
so yeah, yeah. I mean, the digital and analog thing, I don't think it's an either or thing. I think it's like whatever the best tool for the job is,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So I've got a snowblower up in our barn here, right? And luckily we haven't really had to use it this year, but it's a tool that I'm happy I have.
right.
But at the same time,
You need it all year? No.
when it's June,
Right.
I'm not pulling the snowblower out to cut the grass,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta get the lawnmower
So
out for that. Yeah.
yeah, you got yeah, right tools for the right job. So
Yeah, I discovered some things work well with the outboard gear, just like you were talking about. And sometimes I go right back to the plugin because I can find a better tone with
oh
that
yeah,
when it comes to mixing, mixing wise.
yeah, mixing,
And
yeah,
I'm always chasing that acoustic tone. I
mm,
like a little heavier for my ears. Acoustic to
yep,
me sounds, it should be thicker than not so bright as
yep,
everyone does. So I'm always
yeah.
chasing that, trying to chase that one. That's one I'm always
Well,
chasing.
yeah, modern mixes are certainly a lot brighter, but I mean, honestly, I'm set up. Well, we have two control rooms here, and this one's kind of under. This one
Construction.
actually, there's holes in the wall back there that my
Right.
speakers are going into, like soffit mounted
Yeah.
speakers.
Uh,
Um, but what I have my setup is that I can do an analog mix, or I can
mhm.
do a hybrid mix, right? Or I can just do like I have two like summing mixers too. So I've got a Neve summing box, and then I have a Tegler tube summing box. If I want, let's say I'm doing a jazz thing and want more of a vintage warm sound, or if I want to mix right through a console, I can mix through the console too. So literally, I will do whatever a client wants if they've got the budget for it.
Yeah.
Most people
Right.
now you just do it in the box, but so it does.
Well,
It does it for me. I like
no.
all the different ways of doing it, and certainly in the box is easier for recalls. And someone
You
is like, "Oh, can you fix this?" and
gotta
send me a
have
new
the
version.
the
So
Kama Sutra of mixing. That's pretty much.
yeah. So,
But
but
um Well, let's go on to the next question because this is one I
Yes,
know it's
sir.
right up your alley here, and
Oh
and
boy.
and and it's something that we talked about over in for I think it was maybe like an hour and a half or something like that. It went on, which was a great conversation over Mixdown Online, Chris's place. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the elephant in the room, Atmos.
Oh,
You
okay.
think it's here to stay?
Well, I sure as heck hope so, because we're installing an Atmos room in
That's
our big A room. So
that's the reason I'm asking you this question
yeah,
because I know you were doing that,
yeah. So
and we're going
you
to dive
know,
into more.
yeah, the I think it's going to be around for a bit, and I think what's happening or what has happened is that the first few years, it's still kind of the Wild West, as they say, um, but the first few years when music started coming out, right? There were no templates, there were no rules. I mean, Atmos was for movie theaters, for films, right? And what I think a lot of the early mix engineers discovered was that how their stuff was being played back was, they weren't getting the results back that they were expecting. So people had to figure out, how do we make this like rock solid, and this mix rock solid and bulletproof, so some squirrely system that's set up a certain way is not like trashing our mixes. So that was one hurdle. And with the codecs, and Apple's doing this with immersive, and Tidal's doing that with Atmos and all those different things, it's getting to the point now where the mixes are kind of translating pretty well, on different playback systems. And I think, one of the things that gave, well, there are a couple things were giving Atmos like a bad name. And one of them was, I th- there were a bunch of mixes that were rushed out that probably should not have been rushed out. And if you listen to it on the Atmos version on Apple or one of the other services that offers Atmos, some of those early mixes were pretty bad. And you listen to the stereo mix and then the new mix, and you're like, what are they thinking? And some of those mixes were bad. And that's not the fault of the format, because you can have a bad mono mix or a stereo mix or an Atmos mix. It doesn't mean stereo or mono or Atmos is bad. It means that that mix probably shouldn't have been approved. So that was one problem. A lot of people were just hearing bad Atmos mixes. But I think what's, as more and more of the car manufacturers are installing Atmos in the car systems, and some of the Bluetooth technology and wireless technology is making it possible to set up a home Atmos system without running wires all through your family room or den, or your home theater room. It's just making it easier, and it's translating better in headphones too. So the binaural mixdowns are translating better. So you know, there's it's different than, like, quadraphonic back in the day. I mean, I remember a couple quad systems that were still floating around when I was a kid, but that stuff was dependent on each speaker. So each channel, you had to mix stuff to go in the channel,
Right,
right? Or be a phantom center. I mean, it's like
right,
stereo.
right.
And the old Dolby, like 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound, um, those were channel dependent too. And I mean, I've always been into that kind of stuff, having a nice home theater. So even back, like my first house I had back in like 95 or whatever, in the 90s, I had a 5.1 system. I
Hmm.
had my center, my left and right. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it just makes the movies.
right. Much more
It,
exciting.
yeah,
Yeah,
but the thing is, for music though,
it didn't work.
well, and for films, everything was dependent on
Right,
like having those speakers. So all those sounds had to be placed in a speaker or wherever.
right.
And if somebody, let's say, if you had somebody who was listening to 5.1, but they only had left, center, right, and a
Hmm.
sub, all the stuff in back they're not going to hear anymore.
No.
Or a 7.1, it was mixed for 7.1, but you only had stereo, it wouldn't fold it down where you heard everything still in stereo. Stuff
Right,
would just be missing.
right.
Atmos fixes that problem, right? So I know it's got a lot of people upset. It's like, oh, it's just another way of gatekeeping and all that, and or these corporations are just trying to make money and all that. Well, that's what corporations are for. That's capitalism. You're trying to make money.
Right.
you know, that's what we do.
Right.
We're I'm not mixing everybody for free. I'm trying to
No.
make a few, I'm trying to make money and make a living.
Right.
And Dolby's trying to stay in business, and everybody, Apple, whoever.
Right.
So, but I think it's going to be around, because I think that how it's being done is different, and there's some, there's always stuff going on behind the scenes, like now that there's going to be new products out that are going to make it easier and
Right.
affordable for consumers, because that's really what it boils down to. Is it easy and cost effective for consumers to be able to listen to this stuff in a
Right.
cool way?
Right.
Now,
And
there's also, well, there's some generational stuff too, where I think that
yeah.
younger people are just used to listening to like music on an iPhone or an Android. They'll just set it down on a table and
Right.
listen, and or they'll watch a movie that way.
Right.
When Steven Spielberg is making a movie for IMAX, his intention is for you to go see it in a Dolby Atmos room on a giant screen that's,
Right.
half the size of a football field or something.
Mhm.
And so if you are watching it on your, iPhone 15 or whatever, you're not getting the same experience. And I think a lot of people now are fine with trading convenience for the full flavored experience, right?
Right. Mhm.
So they'll do the Keurig pod for a coffee to get it fast and easy, instead of going to like the locally owned like coffee
Right.
like place, just because it's fast and easy. They'll just do it at home,
Right.
or they'll go to 7-Eleven or something. So it's a convenience thing. But I think Dolby's going to stick around. I think Dolby Atmos is going to stick around.
Right.
I mean, and I hope so, because we're putting in a crap ton of PMC speakers downstairs. So
speaking on that, which will lead us into the next question here. So staying on the topic of Atmos, could you educate us on what the basic needs to get an Atmos studio room going? Because I was under the impression, I had zero idea until that day we were all talking on MIxdown. I thought you had to have a huge room. I didn't know that you could do it here in your bedroom.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, actually, Matt Boudreau, who's the working class audio podcast guy,
right?
He's got a house in the Bay Area, and one of their spare rooms he converted into his mix room, and then it's become his Atmos room. So, I think that the minimum required space for Atmos, based on the Dolby spec, and of course it's all in metric, but I think it's like 9 something feet by 10 and a half, 11 feet long by 9 feet, and like just under an 8-foot ceiling.
Right.
So the minimum requirement to have a room is a 7.1.4 room. I mean, yeah, you can start experimenting with decent headphones and binaural and all that, but no, go.
I'm sorry. So that right there, that whole knowledge right there, of course I had to run to my wife. Guess what we're gonna do? Of course I got smushed like a bug, but I went on and looking at speakers, the whole thing.
Yep.
And Focus, right? Not Focus, Focal. They got a really nice speaker setup, which was, it included the wires, the whole thing. And I want to say it was right around maybe 12, maybe a little more than 12. So
well, here's the thing. It's serious when Sweetwater is offering speaker bundles.
Right.
And
that's where it was.
Yep. There you go. So, Cali Audio, 2 NAMs ago, we were hanging out with Cali a lot, and they, their IN8s and IN5s are a very viable system with their sub, and it's a package that you can buy, and that's what Will Kennedy and like Matt Wallace and Will Kennedy have in their room, and they're doing like all these big name records with these Cali Audios,
right?
and that bundle of speakers is like $5,000, it's just under $6,000.
Right.
And now Audient just came out with a new interface that does Atmos.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like $2,500, $2,600, and it's not
Right.
just a Atmos interface. It actually has some mic pre's, and you can use it as a recording interface, and and you can ADAT a bunch of other like satellite
Mhm.
converters into it. I think that'll do like up to 16 speakers. And there's a Dante option for an extra $600 if you want to do like digital stuff with Dante. So IK Multimedia has a bundle of like those IK
Mhm.
minis or whatever they're called. So they have a Atmos bundle, and that's even a little cheaper than Cali, and those are small with like wall mounts and stuff, so you can get them up on a tripod or a stand pretty easy.
Right, right.
They're probably under $4,000, I think. So yeah, you need an interface, with some kind of monitor controller built
Right.
in,
Right.
and you need the speakers, and you need a computer that can run the Atmos. Now Atmos is now it. The other thing, when you see the DAWs including it as part of the DAW now, it's built into the new, like the
Right.
Cubase Pro.
Right,
It,
right.
you can get it in Pro Tools, and it comes in Logic, and I think Studio One maybe is doing it. I'm not sure, but Atmos has their standalone software, stuff that you can run on the same computer. A lot of the guys are running two separate computers, so they've got their mix computer that shoots all the signal out to a second box that is actually printing that Atmos mix. But if you have big enough of a box to do your mix and Atmos in the same box, you can do it.
Right.
Right. So, the other thing that's happening is that I think some mixers are seeing opportunities to maybe get some business that, maybe they wouldn't have been able to get in the past. And,
Sure.
and it just, so I don't
I
think it can be a lot of money. I mean,
well,
even like getting in cheap, it's you're probably looking at like 8 to 10 grand.
but the old
Eight.
saying is you have to spend money to get money a lot of times too. So, you don't need to go crazy with it. I if you can get a business going for under 25,000,
Yep.
that's cheap.
Yeah.
You're not spending money on gas, driving everywhere. You're not, there's you're in one place. So I don't the overhead, cost to keep things going is minimal really because it's just your space.
Yep. And
Um,
I'm still waiting to see more people do kind of like the Bob Clearmountain thing, because Bob's mixing an Atmos through his SSL with two computers, and Bob's got his own thing going on. But what he did for his ceiling speakers was he went out and got some Yamaha consumer speakers. So they're like home
yeah,
stereo
I remember hearing
speakers.
that. Right.
And I think he had to run them through some power amps because they're passive, like unpowered
Hmm.
speakers.
Sure.
But I'd be really curious to see somebody who's got a pile of old speakers laying around to just like try to set up an Atmos setup with like off the shelf like consumer speakers,
Right. I got
right?
plenty of them.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, so you definitely need this. I mean, you can get into it and start playing with it. If you already have one of the DAWs that has it built in, you can
Right.
start playing with it. And if you got some headphones, you can monitor the binaural version and get an idea. And the binaural algorithms are getting better and better, where it's more and more convincing, where it sounds like stuff's behind you or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's getting
More
like
and more
pretty cool.
advanced.
So
Right. Well,
so
yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking more into I haven't actually even I have Cubase and I have yet to actually venture into that plugin that they have available
oh,
in Cubase
okay.
to do it. But
Now
I will
yeah.
just
Well, you should definitely do it. Now, is that only Cubase Pro, or all the Cubases have that?
I think it's only on Cubase Pro. I don't think
Okay,
Elements would have that. Not that I'm
okay,
aware of. Now
okay.
it might be on there are other platforms they have too. Maybe I don't know. I'm not certain
Yep.
about that.
Not sure.
Yeah.
My headphone is tangled up. Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, let's get on to question number 5. I thank you for all this information. You know,
Oh, you are welcome.
I think it's important, especially if people are watching this just starting out, to you know, get this kind of information into their nugget. You know. So
Nice.
all right. Well, question 5. Tell us about your last project or your latest project. Were there any challenges that you had to overcome, or did it just simply go smooth as pie?
Well, my latest project went till about 2 o'clock in the morning this morning.
Oh, wow.
And it was recording, and it went pretty well. But yeah, we had some keyboard overdubs we had to do. So yeah, I was hoping to get a good night's sleep before this interview. So yeah, I didn't get to bed till like I don't know, 4:30, 5 o'clock my time. And then I was up like 4 hours later to get myself prepped for
Prepared.
this interview, and my stylist didn't show up, and my hair's a mess, and oh my god. But anyway, the yeah, dude. I mean, that's my most recent one. Was literally like less than 12 hours ago. I was recording. I had 2 guys here doing keyboard overdubs, and yeah, it went well. They came in and knocked out a bunch of stuff, and this is for an album that I'm working on for a guy who's originally from Binghamton, New York, moved to Buffalo for college, and he moved to LA and worked in film and stuff. He was in LA, then he was in San Diego for a while, and he started recording a bunch of stuff in San Diego and LA at East West, and there used to be a studio in San Diego called Black Box that's gone now. And he showed up last year, maybe end of the summer, early autumn. He had these 2 old hard drives with like Firewire hard drives from like 2005. And he's like, dude, I got a bunch of Pro Tools sessions and Cubase sessions that I recorded with like all these, famous people on the West Coast and all that stuff. And he had no way to do anything with them. So I had to get Firewire adapters, get it into a modern computer, all that stuff. And then I'm recovering Pro Tools sessions from 2007 and Cubase and Pro Tools sessions that were recorded between 2007 and like 2012, maybe 2013.
Wow.
And then had to figure out what was what, and then figure out what was usable, what we had to overdub, and all that. So it was like this archaeology project where you're sifting through the sands looking for artifacts, kind of thing, And so yeah, that's been a really good, cool project, and there's like some killer songs, just amazing stuff. So that's been fun. And the last thing I did before that, like this week, over the last week, I got an album out for a gentleman that I met named Jens Nielsen, who I believe is a produced like a pro member too, Jens.
Sounds familiar.
And yeah, and he's in Copenhagen, Denmark. So I just got an album mastered, and it should be out like this week. So I did that for him, and then I've got another client I did a bunch of mixes for. So one was for an NPR Tiny Desk concert. So there's this band called
man, they were so awesome.
Oh, you saw them?
Oh,
okay,
man.
That's David Jonathan and the Inner City Bedlam.
Okay, you know when musicians are so good, they look bored playing their instruments.
It looks like they're not doing anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, oh my god, I couldn't stop watching. It was, and he's back there playing his drums while singing, and it was like nothing for him. And I'm just like,
yeah,
God, man, I wish I could do stuff like that, because I can't.
Dude, he's an amazing drummer. I mean, he's sponsored by some cymbal companies and stuff, and he's kind of known in the drumming world. But yeah, I mean, he's an amazing drummer, and he's the band leader. So he's like the lead singer. He's the main songwriter and all that stuff. And David's, those guys can all play. So that was just recorded live in someone's house, like up a little north of me, like in Niagara Falls. You can see it in the video on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's like recorded in somebody's living room.
Right.
So I got that out, and then last week, Thursday or Friday, I had an interview with Liz Shaw from Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm prepping for that, and I get a call from David. He's like, "Hey, can you get a bunch of songs for me mixed? we're doing a theme song for a TV pilot for the
Oh,
A&E network or something like
nice.
that. So this is like Thursday night, like at midnight or something like that. And I'm prepping for this interview. And then Friday, so I've got like Friday to knock out 3 mixes for a TV pilot. And
Hey,
so, yeah, so, and they were just recorded like, I think in that same guy's house as the NPR thing was.
yeah.
They just, they didn't go to a studio because I think they wanted it filmed or videoed so they could put it like on the TV show and use like film clips of them
Hmm.
playing like in the TV
Right,
show. So and all that TV stuff, I always make sure it's always like 48K because it has to sync with the video and all that
right,
stuff. And
right.
but yeah, so like the last week I've had a bunch of just mixing and mastering projects, and yeah, I've got
That's great.
a bunch of albums just sitting
Yeah.
around waiting. So
Well, that's
and
good.
more coming in, so staying busy.
I'm happy for you. Really am
Yeah,
happy.
thanks.
My wife and I did the NPR thing one year, and
Yep.
and not knowing really what it was, someone suggested we do it, so we did it. And then when I got to see everyone else's stuff and
Yeah.
listen to their music, but this one, and I've heard a lot of NPR. If this one doesn't win, I don't know. I
Well,
really don't
everyone
understand.
I've had a bunch of people reach out to me about that, and I mean, they did play the hell out of that song, but I also tried to mix it like because they weren't the actual NPR Tiny Desk concerts. They have a thing they do with shotgun mics, and it's kind
Hmm.
of acoustic. It kind of reminds me of like the old MTV
Right,
like
right.
unplugged thing in a
Hmm.
way,
Hmm.
but these guys weren't playing like that. They had real amps and they were recording direct.
Right.
Well, some of this, like the keyboards, were direct, but um, they didn't want that acoustic unplugged sound. They wanted it to sound
Yeah,
like,
I the best possible. That's what I.
yeah, they wanted it to sound like, James Brown's band is kicking it in
Yeah.
1974, and it's
And
just pumping and grooving and moving. And they were just, I mean, those cats are always swinging for the fences, man. It's like, man. And I've recorded them, a bunch of times in different places, and they just,
yeah.
most of those guys all grew up playing in church worship bands and stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
And man, if you can be in like a high school band or like a concert band, or you can be like in a worship band or something like that, you will, give you some great practice, like that 10,000 hour rule thing. But
Yeah, exactly.
man, it gives you like some discipline too, because it's
Right.
about the song and the band. It's not just about my drum solo or my guitar
Right.
solo, or
Right.
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 So those guys all give each other space. And
Yeah.
man, yeah. So thanks for
I'm.
checking that out. Yeah, those guys
Yeah.
are
I mean,
awesome.
literally, I got goosebumps watching them. I really
Yeah,
did. And
yeah.
you know, back to that is that the mix has a big thing to do with that excitement and how you accomplished it. you know.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I wanted it to sound live. I mean, that song, I think there was only 2 mics on the drums. So there was, it was
Right.
old school, like an old Motown or Beatles record. There was an
Right.
overhead and a
Right.
kick.
Yep.
Then there was like a 57, or no, it was like a 57 beta over the percussion or
Yeah.
something
Right.
like that, and the
Right.
background vocals were like 58s, and I mean, it was very minimal,
Right. Right.
but and a lot of bleed, as you can imagine, because they're like in somebody's living room.
Right. Right.
But
Of
the
course.
thing is like you can make that work. And I was thinking like, well, if I wanted to, and they told me make it sound like an old soul or
Hmm.
Motown or like jazz, but like live thing, like make it sound like an old like James Brown live show.
Sure.
And so you got all that bleed, and you got the energy of like a
Hmm.
band going for it. Like I said,
Right. Right.
swinging for the fences, man.
Right. Right.
And so I don't want to take the energy and excitement away from them. So
Right.
yeah, so you just play with it and mix it, and because
Yeah.
like if I'm sitting here between the speakers and I'm feeling it and I'm cranking it, and then my wife walks in and she's like, "What is that?" And she's moving and stuff, and just
Right.
like
Right.
it's like, all right, I'm heading in the right direction.
Right.
So,
Yeah. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
well, thanks.
Yeah, it is amazing. Well, that leads us into the next 5 questions, which are the rapid fire questions.
The lightning round.
Yeah, so you can either, you know, answer them with one answer, or you can just, extend on them if you like to, whatever you like to do.
I need
So,
more caffeine.
here we go. Question number one. Favorite piece of outboard gear?
Oh man, favorite piece of outboard gear? Um for any situation? I
Any
mean like
situation. Yeah. I mean, like if you had that one piece of gear that you, simply must have something on it, on something.
well, I'll tell you what. This is gonna. I hope this doesn't sound like a cop out, but I'm wearing them right now, and it's my Olo Audio S4X headphones. And the
Okay.
reason why I say that is because these bad boys, um, they're like, in the same ballpark as like the Odyssey headphones.
Hmm.
Not nearly at the same. They're definitely at a much lower price point.
Sure.
But the thing about these and why they've been a lifesaver is that when I'm going through construction and my speakers are down, or if I'm going to a different studio or I'm working, on location somewhere, these give me a consistent monitoring sound, right? An environment wherever I go.
Right.
So if I'm mixing in a different room or tracking in a different room, or I want to just check stuff wherever I go, I've got the hard shell case for these. And actually, I use them so much that the logo is worn off on both sides because I use them so much. So, I mean, these things have been lifesavers. I've mixed entire records on these things, and I listen to them on other speakers, and they translate perfectly. And the beauty of these headphones, for me anyway, and everyone's different, everyone's hearing and brain is different, but for me, they're really fine. They're balanced nicely. Like I don't need to use any corrective EQ software,
Mhm.
right? So I don't need to do any, anything like that. They just work wherever I go. So I don't need to take, you know, software or EQ curves or corrective stuff.
Right. Right.
So like I don't use like the virtual room things or anything like that. I just want like old school headphones that tell me the damn truth.
Right.
And wherever I go, that's what these do, and they've been a lifesaver.
That
So
seems to be the case when you get up to a certain price point on headphones from other people I've talked to, that when they get up to that level, what you're talking about range wise, they don't use the Sonar Works,
no,
they, because they say they sound better without it actually. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah, and there's a lot of good speakers. And the thing is, everyone's brain and ears are different. So there's people that can mix on, AirPods if they wanted to, right?
right,
It
right,
doesn't matter, but you have to go through the exercise of testing to see what works for you.
right,
But
right.
and I went through. I mean, I have boxes of headphones that I've gone through just looking for that holy grail of what's going to be the
Right,
one,
right.
right? And so far these are good.
Oh,
So
that's
and
great.
I so good that I'm wearing the logo out and I've had to replace cords and stuff because yeah.
Well,
So
you answered two questions there
oh
on with
damn.
that one, but that's okay. That's good because that was question number five, was what's your favorite headphones? So
Oh
see, you were channeling me. That's what you were doing. You were channeling there. So
wow.
appreciate that.
It's
Question number
hysterical.
question number two. Favorite can't live without plugin for mixing.
Oh man. Just one?
Just one.
Well shoot. Man. I'm trying to think through this real quick. I know this is
Yeah, no
rapid
problem.
fire, but
No, no
damn,
problem. No, no
you
problem.
I guess if I had to pick just one, I mean, man, for mixing, I'm trying to think what one I use on everything, and there's like two of them that I use on everything.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like FabFilter Pro Q3, the EQ one, is pretty much on every mix, and it's a lifesaver. That's more of a utility thing. I mean, I do tone shaping with it too, but FabFilter Pro Q3, I mean, there's if you ask me which one has saved my bacon a bunch of times,
Hmm.
there's MV2, and there's, this or
Yeah.
that or whatever. There's, all the denoiser things and isotope stuff. But the one that I literally use on everything that would bug me to have to find a different like replacement would probably be like FabFilter Pro Q3, just because it's pretty surgical and pretty clean. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with FabFilter. Sorry.
That's okay. Mine's gonna be a compressor. It's gonna be 1176 black from
Yep.
IK Media. I have that on everything. Any mix I do, I'll have that. It's somewhere involved
Yep.
with it. That
Yeah.
that one to me is great. So
Yeah, and the weird thing is I don't think about plugins so much. I know this is rapid fire, but I don't
that's
think
right.
about it as much because of my mix template, right?
Yeah.
I have all my plugins saved in my template, and I have different choices, right?
Right.
So for my drum bus, let's say, or my vocal or whatever, I have different choices, and I just kind of go through them and like whichever one sounds good without too much tweaking.
Hmm.
It's like this, this version of a 76 or the CLA 76 or the, UA or the
Right.
IK or whoever, right? I
Right.
just
Right.
okay, but I don't think about them that much because it's just like I could just do it on
It
a
comes
control surface,
right.
pressing buttons, whichever one sounds best. Okay, don't touch it. That one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's makes sense.
yeah, so
I'm kind of the
that's why I
same
had to
way.
think about it because I'm like I don't really think about it because it's just in a template, like,
Right. Right. Right.
All right, sorry.
So that's okay. No, it's great. It's great. Question number three. Favorite platform to maintain your schedule with all your busyness?
Play. Oh wow. Well, actually, I've just been using the Google Calendar, and you can have like, and my wife and I keep in sync with the Google Calendar, and we can also like keep our kids and everybody updated what's going on. Um, So Google works, and I like how the calendar and other stuff will integrate. Like if you're using, let's say, Microsoft Outlook's email and their calendar and stuff, or if you're using other platforms, the Google Calendar can integrate. Plus, if you want to spend a few bucks, Google has like their business level stuff, which ups the game somewhat. So a lot of
Yeah.
my scheduling, it's just Google Calendar, man, and
Yeah.
it just right,
Yeah,
and it
it's what I use. It keeps everything simple. It's
yeah. I
convenient right
mean,
there on my computer already. So
yeah, I mean, I could get fancy and pay for some cloud scheduling service or
I
something. But oh,
I did do this. Let me see if I can show you
see what
which
you got.
see that little whiteboard there.
Yeah, I do.
That's I just purchased that a couple of weeks ago, and so because I started doing these interview things, well, I couldn't
Yep,
keep remember who in the hell I had, even though with
yep,
with the Google thing. That
yep,
right there, every time I walk out, I can see it exactly where who's and what's going on that week. So
yep,
I'll erase it and start, write it in right there.
yep.
That
Well,
that
I do. Yep, just behind camera, I do have a calendar on the wall,
mhm.
and it's hysterical because it's a large print calendar for old folks, so I can actually see it from back here. But
Right.
I'll write stuff in there. But actually, what I'd like to get is something like a LCD, almost like a tablet style thing that I can put on the wall.
Mhm.
It's like an iPad or an Android or something,
Right.
where then I can have my scheduled stuff like just up there,
Right.
like on the wall instead of a paper calendar.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'm still fine with a pencil and paper. So
There you go. Yeah,
yeah,
that's let the
it
best.
works, man.
I think that was like a whole $7. And
Yeah, yeah, whiteboards are awesome.
so all right, question number four. Favorite all-purpose microphone.
Well, it's got to be a 57 or
Yeah, I was
58. I mean, it just, like I said earlier, give me go to Home Depot, get a bucket,
right.
fill it up with some 57s and
Yeah.
58s, and you can make a record.
Yeah,
You know,
you know,
it,
I'm the guy that has to have everything different. I can't if someone's using the 57, I gotta
yeah,
have this microphone because I don't want it to sound like the
yeah.
57.
Well, there's the Audix i5, which is a great snare mic for a dynamic.
Well, so what
That's a
ended
good
up
one.
what I ended up doing was eventually I broke down. They had one on Reverb that someone had for an unbelievable price. It was like brand new.
All
So I
right.
bought it and I had to record some harmonica. And man, I was blown away.
Oh,
So
that's all good.
now I'm a believer in the 57. I really
Yeah.
fought and fought and fought not to buy one, but I did. And now I'm glad I did. So
Yeah. Well, they're rock solid. I mean, they were built to military spec. You can beat them up, and
yeah, that's
you
true.
can you can build a deck in your
Now,
backyard. Just start pounding nails with it.
now
So
here's another funny thing about the 57. What was the cost when you first bought your first one?
how much did it cost?
Yeah, do you remember the cost of it, what it was when you
Oh
first bought it?
man, my first 57. Yeah, dude, I was in high school, and I don't remember how much
Like
it costs.
like
I
100
honestly
bucks?
don't. I know they've been $100 for like 20 years,
Yeah, I know.
or
Isn't that funny?
maybe since like 1990 they've been. I don't know how
Well,
much they were back then.
it's like Costco and their hot dog, $1.50 hot dog with a Coke,
It's been that much forever, right?
I mean, why if they raise the price, they might not sell as many, so you know,
Yeah.
it's just funny that it's been that price for such a long time.
Well,
Uh,
I'll tell you what, and people who are watching can do a Google search on this. There's an engineer named Barry Rudolph, I think his name is, and he's the guy who recorded the first Hall and Oates record back in like 75 or
mhm,
76. And the hit single off that album was called Sarah Smile, which you
mhm.
might remember that song.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Well, you can do a Google search on this. Barry Rudolph had a thing called the $300 drum sound. And the $300 drum sound was the only microphones used on the drums for the number one single, Sarah Smile, were 57s. So 57s on the kick, the toms, the hi hats, the overheads, only 57s. So I don't know how many 57s he used, but apparently in 1975 dollars, it cost $300. So you can make a number one record with 57s
Yeah,
just on drums and nothing else if you want to. So,
right, right.
yeah,
So,
but yeah, so I mean, dude, there's so many good mics nowadays. It's so much different than when I was a
right,
kid.
right.
Lewitts and the Roswell Pro stuff's absolutely amazing, and just so many good mic companies, and
Yeah,
but yeah.
I agree. And speaking of Mike, what's the one you have right there you're speaking
Oh,
into?
this is a British company called Sontronics,
Heard
and
of them?
so they're like made in the UK. This is a hypercardioid dynamic broadcast style microphone. I think it's called the Broadcast Pro or Podcast Pro, and it has three levels of pop filter built in.
I was gonna say because and that's not you said that because it doesn't have a lot of S's
Yeah.
de-essing and all that. It sounds great.
Well, I think I've got the 80 hertz
Okay.
like low cut engaged on the preamp too, so it's going to take some of the rumble out. But yeah, these things, I think they're Sweetwater has them, but they're like $150. So is it a RE20? No. Is it an SM7? No. Is it in the same ballpark? And is it, and in my estimation, it's better than a lot of the other
Mhm.
kind of aspirational mics that are going at people who want an SM7 or an
Mhm.
RE20 but don't have the $400 or whatever.
Right.
So I actually got this at Thomann, who's the
Sure.
the
Yeah.
the music company
Mhm.
based out of Europe, out of
Right.
Germany, and they were 99 with the currency exchange. They're only $99 US from Thomann.
Right.
Now
Right.
I did have to pay for shipping, but I bought three of them, so the shipping was the same for buying three of them. So it was
Oh,
cheaper to buy three of them
sure. Sure.
from Germany, and they showed up in 3 days than it was to buy from anywhere in the States. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, something's happening here on the screen here. Oh, whiteboard mode. Oh, sorry about that. My camera is doing, if I do hand gestures,
It moves.
It thinks I'm trying to go into a whiteboard. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
can.
funny.
Yeah, I've got the Insta
Sure. Yep.
360 link.
Hmm.
So like if I do this, it'll follow me around
Right.
or
That's what
stop
it was.
following me around.
That's what it started. It started following you around for a little bit for a while there. It was going.
Yeah,
Doot, doot, doot.
yeah, yeah. It's freaking out. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries at all. So
AI's not so I.
no. But yeah. But I would you know, question five, you we've already covered that, your headphones. So at this point, that's all we have. You
Really?
know, question wise, yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
went through all 10. So
Sweet.
yeah, yeah, and I cannot say thank you enough for
Oh,
taking the time out of your
you
day
are welcome, my
and
friend.
and
So
doing this.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
well, let's stay in touch, and I'm sure we'll run into each other, in Chris's forums over at MCC, MIxdown OnLine, or wherever. So
right?
yeah,
Absolutely, of course.
yeah.
So
And if you're planning any trips anywhere, like Sweetwater or anything like that, because they have their big thing. If you're doing any like music trips, let me know, because if I'm going, we can hook up for coffees or
okay,
adult beverages or whatever. So
either one sounds good to me.
I'm always down with tacos too. So
Oh, that's those are yeah, out here in California, that's a
I
must.
know. I know. Well, my wife's family, most of them are out in Orange County. So,
Right, that's what you're telling
and
me.
yeah, so there's a place called oh shoot, why am I Taco Mesa. They've got a few
Hmm.
locations.
Sure, I know them.
So Taco Mesa, it's like, oh my God, they are so good.
Yes, they
They are
are.
so good. So I always have to get Taco Mesa, and I got to find a Ruby's. So, which is not Mexican, definitely not Mexican, but
Right, right, right. It's close.
man, that salted caramel milkshake at Ruby's with an order of fries, it's like 1950s heaven. So,
Now do you dip your fries in the shake there too, or do you
if people aren't
bypass
looking,
that? Yeah, I
if
do that.
people aren't looking, yeah,
That's
you
what I
got to,
do.
man.
Something about that potato and the salt and the chocolate that just I don't know why no one's came out with it with a pie. They should have a chocolate potato salted pie. I mean, I think that would be great.
Well,
Ice
there's
cream
sweet
wise.
potato pie, so a salted caramel potato. You know what? I'm going to talk to my wife. We're going to reverse engineer that thought into something tasty.
Let me
Dude, you
know.
just,
Keep us
yeah.
informed. So,
Also, all right.
all right,
Well,
Charles. With that said, this is Andy inside the music. Charles Root. Adios, everybody. Take care. Bye.
see ya.